I do think that there is this trend towards everything being, there's something in every spot. And unless we're, and I'm talking about building, man-made structures, and unless we're intentional about saying, in addition to that, we want some spaces where we can be refreshed and enjoy, the green space alongside these other places where we want to gather, we want to live, we want to have cool places to work, and great entertainment and things to go do culturally. It's just not going to happen unless we prioritize that.
There is not a square inch in the whole domain of our human existence over which Christ, who is sovereign over all, does not cry, mine.
Some cities are built with blueprints. Others are shaped by belief. What we value, preserve, and imagine together becomes the story our city tells, not just in its skyline or infrastructure, but in its spirit. At the heart of any great city in which a Christian dwells is a quiet trust that the past matters, that beauty is worth fighting for, that our shared spaces carry sacred weight. But what happens when development outruns discernment? When history is paved over? When that very trust between neighbors, between generations, communities, and institutions begins to erode? Christian faith has something to say here, not as a political slogan or a private sentiment, but as a public force, a lens through which we see our streets, our stories, our shared future. It speaks into what Christians choose to build, what we protect, and who we include. Well, I'm so grateful that today we're joined by the leaders of the Orlando Land Trust, a civic organization asking, what does it mean to love a city long enough to steward its soul? So, this is a conversation about public theology, but also about trees and thresholds and trust, about why faith belongs not just in our churches, but in our courthouses, our neighborhoods, our parks, and our civic imagination. So, Eugenia Sefcik, Lynn Long, Ted Haddock, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Well, now, Ted and Lynn, I haven't known except for, on email or the past few minutes, but y'all know, like Eugenia and I go way back at First Presbyterian Orlando, yes?
That's correct, Gase.
Well, y'all will appreciate this, Ted and Lynn. So I got in here 20 years ago, much skinnier, and I'm brand new as the mission pastor, and I get a phone call. And on the other end of the line, I hear, Case, my name is Eugenia Sefcik, and I would like to raise the money and do all the work and send 50 urban youth to a church camp. And I was like, okay. But she said, I have 2 rules. I said, okay. Number 1, I don't do committees. And number 2, when I call, you answer. So I was like, yes, ma'am. Like, let's go. So I imagine in your work together, you understand this approach, yes?
Lynn does for sure. I definitely do.
Yeah. Look, she gets stuff done for Jesus, and that's why we've worked well over the years.
Well, Lynn is known by her friends as the little general.
Ah.
So it's not just me, it's Lynn also.
Okay. So you're the tall general, she's the little general.
That's exactly right.
I love it. And Ted's just along for the ride.
I do what I'm told.
Well, to our viewers and friends, welcome to Nuance, where we seek to be faithful in the public square. I'm Case Thorp, and I want to encourage you, like, subscribe, share. Our numbers have been doing great, and the more you do that, the further we can reach and share this good word. So let me tell you about our guest. Eugenia Sefcik is a 5th-generation Floridian. She served as a senior vice president with the Bank of America and then co-founded with her husband Employment Technologies Corporation. Lynn Long, another 5th-generation Orlandoan, is a retired professor of marriage and family therapy. And Ted Haddock, the president of the Edward E. Haddock Jr. Family Foundation, is a filmmaker, a cultural steward, hands involved in all sorts of projects with a passion for preserving beauty and advancing justice. All 3 worship at different downtown Orlando churches. Now, their most recent project that captured my attention has been an expansion of Orlando's premier space, Lake Eola Park, a park actually that's just about 3 blocks from where I'm sitting. And Ted, I imagine you're at the hub, right? Or sitting right on the park?
Yeah, the park. I can see it right out the window.
Yeah, right out the window. Well, so they have worked to secure some of the key parcels of adjoining land to the park, and notably the southwest corner, which was once slated for development. And they're giving them back to the city as permanent green space. Their work is about more than just preservation, but like I mentioned earlier, it's renewing a public trust, honoring beauty, and it says something about who we are as Christians and our citizenship in the public square. So, friends, y'all come from such different professional and personal backgrounds, philanthropy, the marketplace, therapy, finance, and you clearly love Orlando. So tell me, what brought y'all together and why now?
Case, I'm going to start, if that's okay. My involvement began with the project to protect Lake Eola back in 2015 when a developer was seeking approval from the city to build a 440-foot high-rise next to the Roslyn Club located on Lake Eola Park.
I didn't know it was going to be that high.
Yes, and the clubhouse was 100 years old, and it was important to me to protect that building. I was assured by the developers that the clubhouse would withstand the construction, but I knew that wasn't true because the new building was to be built 6 feet away from the clubhouse. I knew a building of that size would have a negative impact on the surrounding area too.
And didn't you say, Eugenia, how old that building is?
It's over 100 years old.
Yeah.
The Roslyn Club's been around longer than that, but the building,
yeah,
is what now, Lynn? Maybe 110? 10 years
12.
old now.
Wow.
So, but I don't know if you know this, but there's a federally protected bird sanctuary in the park.
No,
It has 5 species of swans plus ducks and other birds.
What about all the birds, on the little island that just poop all over the green?
That's the federally protected. Yes, that's
okay.
correct.
That's it.
Not that we want to get rid of birds, but it's so unsightly, but I guess it ain't going anywhere.
That's right. I was overwhelmed knowing that I would have to hire an attorney, present to the municipal planning board, and be prepared to talk to the press. A friend of mine, Ann Luff, said, "You've got to contact my cousin, Lynn Long, because she can help you with this."
Yes.
I knew who Lynn was, Case, but we'd never met before. Ann was absolutely right. Lynn was interested in helping to protect the Roslyn Club and Lake Eola Park.
So, Lynn, you are not in the Roslyn Club, I guess, because y'all haven't met.
No, I am in the Roslyn Club, but the Roslyn Club is a large group of women.
Okay.
And we just had not been in the same group. She was a Winter Park person, and I'm a South Orlando person.
Yes. Well,
back in the day, that mattered a lot.
Well, I'm a South Orlando person too. Okay, so you too, though, Lynn, really cared about the Roslyn Club and the building also.
That's correct.
Yes.
And the park.
Mm-hmm.
So we formed a committee, hired an attorney, identified people to present at the municipal planning board, worked on our presentations over a 72-hour period to oppose this high rise.
Okay.
And when we went to the municipal planning board, we were not the only ones in Orlando opposing this project.
Oh, is that right?
There was a lot of opposition. Ultimately, the project was approved.
If I may, tell me this. What other groups or individuals were opposing this building and why?
There were some groups from Lake Eola. There's some preservation groups trying to preserve Lake Eola, the natural habitat. There were 2 or 3 other groups who were also there. Neighborhood associations were there, the Thorp Park Neighborhood Association and other active groups. So it was a concerted effort, but we didn't know it was concerted at the time.
Now, Ted, was it on your radar yet?
A little bit. Before we officed in our current location, we were renting a space at that corner. So we had a sort of a front row seat to some of the 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 folks coming to look at that corner of the park and see where the building would fit. And of course, we were following the news and hearing things. And so, I had an interest just because, growing up in Orlando, I love the place and I love the park and have a lot of memories there. In fact, there's a picture on my desk with my dad holding me when I was about 2 years old. And you can see the only building around the park was it's now the Fifth Third Bank building, but it's the one on the northwest corner. And so anyway, there's like Lynn and Eugenia, and all of us, we have a lot of memories in that place, and just know that it serves a greater good. And I think none of us are opposed to development or have any hard feelings for anyone who wants to do a project, but
we're all good capitalists here.
What's appropriate for that spot, and so we all started to develop our own opinions on it. And we felt like maybe there's a better use for that piece of property.
Now that building you were in is it too a historical structure? It's a beautiful building.
It is. I mean, I don't know. We have to define what historic means, but by Orlando standards, it's definitely historic. It's more than 100 years old, and I started doing I didn't realize this till recent years. Like growing up, I wasn't aware of this, but I really do love history, and I love trying to find the details and it's like a treasure hunt to try to find what happened before and
right.
How did that get
I love
there?
That too.
And so as I was doing a lot of research about Lake Eola Park and how it started. I learned that there was just, there was a whole, maybe about 10 or 12 landowners who all had parcels around the lake, and they all, because they cared about the city and its interests, said, we're going to give it to the city. Like you take this piece, you take this piece, and everybody kind of chipped in. And so it was, that's not a story I've ever heard taught anywhere, but it's a really great example. I love that. And, there are some different, considerations at the time. There was no air conditioning and a lot of mosquitoes. So it probably wasn't as desirable, but it did serve a public function. And so there were, it was a community coming together that helped start the park to begin with. So we sort of like that legacy.
So for our non-Orlando listeners, I just want to put this image in your mind. Like Lake Eola is sort of our central park. It is the premier place to gather, beautiful amenities such as an outdoor amphitheater, a wonderful park for children that I've took my children to for years, a wonderful walking and jogging path all the way around it. There are big swan boats that you can rent and paddle out, a big fountain in the middle. And there's swans too, and they'll get you.
They will.
Oh yeah. You don't want to upset the swans. But this particular corner is, has two streets, obviously, that meet. And then on the north side of this property would be the Roslyn Club. And then on the right side of this property is this historic home where Ted was officed for a bit. So just to get that picture in your head, this was a first attempt to sort of reclaim some of the other properties. Okay, Eugenia, continue, please.
Ultimately, the Municipal Planning Board approved the project, so we were not successful. But what happened was Lynn and I caught the attention of Thomas Chapman, who was the executive director of the Downtown Development Board. And he's responsible for all of the projects in downtown Orlando. So he asked to meet with Lynn and myself. And Thomas, Lynn, and I met periodically about the property and discussed ways to protect it. Because the city's vision was that this corner would be the western gateway to the park. So even back in 2015, that was their vision.
But you're saying the city's vision was in conflict with this owner of the property selling to a developer.
Correct. That's correct. And fortunately, the developer from 2015 did not go forward with the project. And so anyway, the city wanted to protect the park. They were working with Lynn and myself and commissioned a study to determine the height restrictions for property both on Lake Eola Park and across the street. And what we determined and what we discovered was that the height restrictions ranged from 150 feet up to 440 feet. And Lynn and I left that last meeting with Thomas, knowing that we were going to have to do something to protect the park because there was nothing that the city could do.
Help me understand two things here. The city may have a vision, but you said the municipality board is independent and they can approve things anyway.
That's correct.
And if there's a restriction from 150 to 400, how could they go to 444? Wouldn't that?
Well, on that particular section, it was 440 feet, but yet on the south side of Lake Eola Park, it was 150 feet. So it was not consistent throughout the property on the park, nor across the street from the park.
And so the municipality just kind of missed that?
No, well, I don't know how to answer that. That was set up, I guess, years and years ago.
Or they overruled it, maybe. They just said,
well, no, the property in question, that did, you were allowed to build a building of 440 feet. Whereas across the street, the view, you know where the view?
Yes,
okay,
it's an apartment
that's
building.
440 feet. But yet next door, it's only 150 feet.
Yes, where that yellow former hotel
That's
now apartments
correct.
are.
Right.
That's correct.
Okay, so there's some zoning struggles that are just not consistent.
No consistency.
Got it. Okay.
But Lynn and I left this meeting and because we knew we had to do something to protect this corner of the park. I contacted Tim Seneff, who was with National Christian Foundation, who rented the Mediterranean house that Ted was also renting at the time, to, contact him and solicit his advice to ask for help. And Tim said, you have to contact Ted Haddock. Little did we know that Ted was on the board of the Nature Conservancy and the Winter Park Land Trust. Okay. So Lynn and I contacted him and he agreed to help us.
So y'all didn't know each other before this?
No.
Okay.
He probably wished that he'd not picked up that.
Ted, you're not a member of the Roslyn Club? Come on.
But Lynn and I called Ted our knight in shining armor because he brought unbelievable skills and credibility to our effort and ultimately agreed to be the president of the newly formed Orlando Land Trust.
Got it. Okay.
And if I can just jump in here for a second, because yes, I am a member of the Roslyn Club. Mm-hmm. I also grew up downtown. And downtown was basically the only place to go. And Lake Eola was the center of everything. We went there for every family holiday. Yeah. They used to have a fish-a-thon that there just was.
There are fish in that lake?
I don't think there are anymore, but.
Well, that's the next project. Restore the fish.
And so I had this historical piece of my own life, just of growing up basically on Lake Eola. I currently live where Lake Eola is it's my front yard. Okay. I live downtown.
Okay.
And so for me, it was the Roslyn Club, but it was also a historical piece of my childhood and something that I really wanted to preserve regardless. It just wasn't the right thing to do on that corner. Yeah.
So, Ted, when they called, your first thought was, this is doable, this is impossible. What was your first thought?
It just seemed like the right thing to do, really. I don't think any of us knew if there was a clear pathway forward, but like a lot of things in life, you might see the next step ahead of you. And so I think we all thought, well, we got to try. And so that's what we did. And kept taking more steps, and we got more traction and support along the way. I think one of the things this wasn't on any of our schedules. We all had plenty of things to do, a lot of interests, family, other commitments, but it's, life presents challenges and opportunities, and, the opportunities are usually challenges. And so it's easy to sort of resent that or get frustrated or blame somebody. But, one thing I've learned in this process is our city leaders are looking for solutions. And I think really that's true for anybody who's trying to get stuff done. So it's not like, I think from the beginning, the idea was, well, what is the solution? Like, maybe we can come up with an idea and help our leaders find a way forward and something that's fair for everyone. And so anyway, I've been encouraged by the possibilities of just stepping into a situation where there's an opportunity for public-private partnership.
And so y'all formed the Orlando Land Trust, and then you went and raised the money for the trust to purchase the property, correct?
That's correct.
Well, there was a step in between. The property was not for sale at that time.
But it was to that developer?
Well, it was at that time, but then he had taken it off the market, the man who owned the 7-Eleven.
I got it. And by the way, folks, there was a 7-Eleven on this corner.
A 7-Eleven that corner, which
not so attractive.
Exists, but we found out through some friends of ours who the person was who owned it and a little bit about their history, and found out they grew up in Orlando too. So I called out of the blue and I said, is your property for sale right now? And he said, no, it's really not on the market. And I said, well, would you be willing to consider it?
Yeah.
And I explained what we were doing. And I said, wouldn't you really rather to be a part of the history of Orlando than see a 35-story building on your property? And he said, absolutely.
Wonderful.
And so we had to have a customer there. We met with him. Eugenia and I had lunch with him. He owned the property with his sisters. And we were like, talk to your sisters.
Okay.
See what you can come up with. We're going to attempt to raise some money, but we have to know that we can have that parcel, because as one of the city leaders told us, the only way to prevent any kind of structure on that is to buy it.
Sure.
Then we own it and we don't have to have
you control it. Okay. So, but you had to pay market rate, right? This guy was no dummy. He wasn't going to just give it away.
That's correct. But the developer previously had offered him $5 million for the property.
Okay.
In that 2015 sale, and we ended up paying $3 million for it.
Oh wow!
So
okay,
he could have waited, for another developer to come along and potentially has gotten more money.
Right, he bought into our vision. Is really, I think he became a very good partner. In fact, he wanted to be on the land trust board of trustees.
Okay, well, that's wonderful.
So, because he grew up there too. His grandmother lived on the lake, and he used to go there as a child. So,
I didn't realize
you just find these connections.
Well, and it ended up that he grew up 2 blocks from me and was friends with one of my siblings.
And is he still in Orlando?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. We should have had him on here too. That's great. Well, but then you needed $3 million, right? So the three of y'all just pulled out your checkbooks and stroked the checks, right?
Oh, yeah, right.
Ted did.
But you had to go find it, and that took time, right? How long did that take?
18 months. And we thought initially that 18 months was plenty of time, and we soon discovered that we'd made a gross error in our judgment. So,
in what way?
Well, it takes to raise $3.5 million in 18 months is very, very challenging, particularly when there's a pandemic.
Oh, wow. Yes.
Yeah.
Although people are available on their phones, right? You can get a hold of them.
Yeah, all of the groups that we planned to go to and discuss, we were having home meetings, we were going to different organizations, and then the pandemic hit. And I had never Zoomed before. I didn't even know what it was. We had to learn all kinds of new things to figure out how we could attract people who believed in our vision.
Okay.
Well, and we did presentations on Facebook. We did, I know that we met with the JCs, and we did that, online, and it was just very interesting.
Orlando remembered some of the old organizations.
Okay.
We did a mail out to downtown Orlando residents, and we'd been told that direct mails didn't work. And we sent out over 4,000 direct mails and bright envelopes, handwritten, no return address, so that we would get someone to open it potentially. And one of the first checks that we got was for $25,000.
Oh my goodness.
Amazing.
Someone who didn't even know us.
Yeah.
Wow.
Lived downtown and just
Wow.
believed in what we were doing. I mean, we talked probably several times a day, but we just spent our time trying to think of, okay, what do? We know we've got to raise this money. We know we have a pandemic and we can't see people.
Sure.
And so we started to think of identifying people who would help us. And
Yeah.
one night when I couldn't sleep, came up with the idea, well, okay, who would give money, a group of people who would want to give money? And I thought grandmothers, okay? Grandmothers would give money for their grandchildren.
That's right.
So we came up with this idea of the Orlando Land Trust. It was the Grandmother's Legacy of Love.
Look at you.
Where we would have all of the grandchildren's names who participated etched in this structure that is currently being built on Lake Eola.
Okay.
And we have over 500 grandchildren.
Oh, that's great.
Who will be etched there permanently. Many who were, fifth, sixth generation Orlandoans. And some that just believed in our project. And so it took on a life of its own. And we contacted a woman who was an artist who made sculptures. She worked with us. She believed in our project. Yes. Then we had someone who actually funded part of the project for us. So, it's just one thing led to another. And it became more and more heartwarming to see the things that people would do to try to preserve our land.
Isn't it beautiful how you get the energy going and the partners just show up and jump on board in ways you don't expect?
Well, and the other thing that was amazing to us, Case, was we had to create a board, and the people that we asked, former Mayor Bill Frederick, former Mayor Glenda Hood, Chaz Bales, Charlie Gray, Mark Lyon, Leslie Poole, and Steve Goldman. We asked them and they all agreed to participate, which those were the people we identified. We contacted them and they all said yes immediately, which to us was a godsend because they were so influential in the community and brought real credence, I guess, to our effort and our board.
So you raise the money, you purchase the property. And today, for our listeners, if you don't live in Orlando, that corner has been beautifully remodeled. The building's gone, and there are palm trees, and aren't there big rocks to sit or climb on? And it's a beautifully transformed space. There's one more building to get that will then clear it up, I believe, so that it is truly that gateway into the park from the more downtown part of Orlando.
It has been gotten.
Yeah.
Oh, it has?
Yes.
The city has purchased the building between where the old 7-Eleven stood and the Mediterranean house that Ted was talking about earlier. They bought that this past spring.
Wonderful.
And they are planning to, I think, keep the Mediterranean house, as I understand it.
Yeah.
Get rid of the tall structure. It's in really bad repair. And then make that the Western Gateway. So the city has just been wonderful with us. I mean, some of the cast of characters have changed. Unfortunately, we lost Thomas Chapman.
Yes, he was a good man. He did a lot for downtown.
That was just so sad.
Yeah.
But he was there to help us when we needed it. And I know he's watching whatever we're doing. Because he just loved it, and he loved us, and he loved the mission, and he was just great. So everyone along the way has done it, and the city finally bought the land, and they're planning to continue our vision
on that big building. Now the trust buys the corner. Does the trust still hold it, or y'all signed it over to the city?
No, we gave it to the city with the deed restriction that it must be public use only.
Got it.
Forever.
And the development of that public use, the Gateway Parkish, the trees and the rocks and stuff that are there now, did y'all pay for that or the city did that?
You mean actually renovating the space?
Yes.
The city paid for that.
Okay. Wow. So Ted, why does green space matter?
Well, there's a lot of different reasons. I'm not an expert or authority on it, but when we need fresh air, we go outside, right? We gotta, I think anytime we're feeling stressed and overwhelmed, we take a walk. We're refreshed by trees and shade and just nature. And so, I think a lot of us grew up in a time where we had access to places where we could go explore. Our kids, who we live in Orlando, and they daydream about stories from my childhood when we get on bikes and we just go ride through the orange groves or whatever was there, and there's no places to do that anymore. So that's okay. Time has changed, but I do think that there is this trend towards everything being there's something in every spot, and unless and I'm talking about building, man-made structures, and unless we're intentional about saying, in addition to that, we want some spaces where we can be refreshed and enjoy, the green space alongside these other places where we want to gather, we want to live, we want to have cool places to work, and great entertainment and things to go do culturally. It's just not going to happen unless we prioritize that. So I think that's part of the vision of the Land to Land Trust, and we're not unique in that. There are a lot of great cities throughout the U.S. That was the whole idea with Central Park in New York City, right? And that was very controversial at the time.
Sure.
Just a quick note on that, if I may, like the designers of Central Park had an uphill battle, and I don't know if you're familiar with this, but they pitched it to the leaders in New York, who said, well, we want the tax revenue. Think of all that land where we could build buildings and people could be paying taxes. And it just seemed like a really dumb idea financially. But they predicted that if you guys will go along with this plan, we're going to set aside this land in the middle of Manhattan. In 50 years, you're going to have more than what you would have lost. And they were right and they were wrong. They were right, in fact, that they got the higher returns than they would have had they built it. But it wasn't 50 years, it was only 20 years. So, of course, you go to New York, and those are the highest rent districts. And so
the world.
Yeah.
In the world.
Yeah. We need green space.
Yeah. Now, you are correct. There are other people and organizations that care about such reclamation and preservation. But y'all are motivated clearly by your faith. And so I'm curious, what is it about your walk with Jesus, your Christian faith, that motivated you in this kind of work?
You just think about, there in Scripture we learn there are just a lot of names for God, and they reflect different attributes, and we recognize God as a creator. And I'm also an artist. Not a capital A, but a small a. And we're given this, ability to be creative and to make things. And I just imagine, like, if the creator of the universe made this amazing, intricate, like ever-changing, beautiful tapestry of nature for us to enjoy and to take care of and make good use of, like, what if, somebody you love gave you a present and you just like trashed it, right? That it doesn't show much respect or appreciation. So I think there is this very basic common sense idea that I don't hear discussed in many churches of just creation care. Like, God made this and said it was good, and gave it to us not to exploit, but to care for, to steward and manage. So I think at a very fundamental level, that's part of what motivates me. And the other thing I'd add on real quick is just nature and the environment, and even if we're brave enough to use the words climate change, like all of those systems and the natural systems, whether they're functioning in a healthy way or in an unhealthy way, it affects all of us.
Mm.
So I think of a really basic way to love your neighbor, which of course we're called to do and want to do, is to care for the world that we live in. So
one of our big motivators at the collaborative is stewardship. Genesis 1 is very clear that we were created to tend the garden, that we are co-laborers with God. That's actually how we get our name, the collaborative, the co-laborative. And stewardship is so very important, whether it's stewarding your own lives, your expression of faith and building of the kingdom of God in your neighborhoods and at work, but also, as you say, stewarding the world in which we live. And so part of my passion and our hope is that we can help increase that idea of stewardship and see others embrace that. Eugenia, Lynn, how about your faith engagement with this project?
I can speak to that. And I mean, for me, it goes back to just being a little child in Bible school in the summers and just, singing songs like All Things Bright and Beautiful and Noah's Ark and all those kinds of things that all talked about the importance of our environment and our stewardship and our need to protect it. I mean, if you go to Genesis, I mean, you're going to talk about the humanity of dominion over the earth. They talk about how God has the earth, but it is our duty to protect it as children of God. And I believe really strongly in that. In fact, my church, St. Luke's, donated a piece of property to Lake Eola, and the city back, I think it was like 1914, with the idea that it must also be park space. So I kind of come from a church that did the same thing. And I've always thought too that is important, that, like Ted said, love your neighbor, but love your land and love your birds and love your animals and love everything that God gave us. And that's just where I came from. It was just ingrained in me as a child.
Sure. I can resonate with that in the way in which at the collaborative, we lift up Jeremiah 29:7, and I'll read that. This is when the Jews are in exile in Babylon, and God says to them, seek the peace and prosperity to the city which I have carried you in exile. Pray to the Lord for it, because if it prospers, you too will prosper. And so much of our world is broken and at odds, and sometimes Christians just want to check out. But actually, God calls us to lean in. And in leaning in, we not only help bring prosperity for ourselves, but for the common good. And that's so important. So important. Eugenia, where did your faith guide you in this kind of work?
Well, my faith provides me with a source of strength through my relationship with Jesus. And this is particularly true when you face trials and tribulations or a monumental project and you want to be successful and not fail. And this project was a way of serving others and improving the community for everyone to enjoy. But throughout this entire process, beginning back in 2015 up until when the city just recently purchased the property to complete the gateway to the park, I just kept thinking about Queen Esther and her cousin Mordecai, who saved the Jewish people from being destroyed by the king's advisor Haman. And in Esther, Mordecai says to Queen Esther, and who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, that you and your father's family will perish. I know that Ted, Lynn, and I were called to this project for such a time as this, to protect Lake Eola Park for the residents, visitors, and animals who live there. I have no doubt about that case.
What's your dream? What's your vision for 50 years from now at Lake Eola?
Well, there is a 50-year plan that the city has provided, which is interesting because it does provide more opportunities for children with playgrounds, more places to gather in terms of eateries. we're also looking at the possibility of a docent type program for children, maybe once a month where they would come and we would have a docent who would take them around and identify the species of swans, identify some of the flowers and all the beauty of nature, and help children learn about that. But we've got to finish our butterfly garden first before we go to this next step. But so I see us being able to do other things, maybe not on the scale of buying property and fundraising, but just ways for community folks to learn more about nature and learn more about our beautiful city.
So I don't know if you can share publicly, or maybe there's Zach, cut that. I don't know if you can share publicly, but are there any other projects at the Orlando Land Trust that are bubbling up or in full force?
Well, we've been asked that question. We really, because, this land trust was formed out of an urgent need. It wasn't that we just created a land trust. We created it with an urgent need.
Got it.
And I think what we all have agreed to do, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but we want to complete this project in its entirety before we move on to anything else. We've discussed some ideas, some possibilities.
Yeah.
But because we formed so quickly and we're dedicated so much to this one individual project, it's not completed, even the land trust portion, because the butterfly garden won't be completed until next month.
Got it. And that's to be on the corner.
That's to be near the Sperry Fountain. It won't be on the corner.
Okay.
It's right within the park. The structure is there now, and they've even put the trees in. So
it's almost behind the Mediterranean House, between the Mediterranean House and the lake.
Sure. Ted, what are you cooking up?
Well, cooking up. That's a great question. Well, I would say to the last question that I do think the Orlando Land Trust is at an inflection point where, like Lynn and Eugenia have said, that we did form out of a specific urgent need, and there was, and that is a little bit unusual in the world of land trusts. Usually, there's the vision, and then you go out and you find the projects to do. So I don't think it was like a mistake or that we got it backwards necessarily, but I think we're trying to figure out as we go, well, where do we go from here? So, yeah, I do think that one of the things we've discussed is finding more trustees who would like to join us and develop a vision for the future. So,
sure.
I will say, just as an example of one of the projects we've discussed, and this is not anything official, this is not anything we've committed to, but it's something I've explored over the last few years, is just the idea of, if you think about land and what green space that could benefit the city, the largest contiguous piece of land that could be really Orlando's Central Park would be the old Sentinel property. It's three
sign
blocks,
me up.
3 city blocks.
Yes.
And there's, as far as I know, there's no apparent plan to put it to use. I think I've seen a few drawings along the way for more, condos and stuff where it's just kind of fills it all in. But if you imagine kind of the Manhattan model and you carved out those 3 blocks in the middle of our downtown core,
wow, that would
it's
be
like
wonderful.
an Orlando-sized park. And, while Lake Eola does have quite a bit of linear space on the map, most of it's a lake.
Sure.
You can't even really use it for much. And so
you can't gather tens of thousands or huge crowds.
Yeah. So that's a big idea. It's a big project. We need a lot of funding. We need a lot of support from various, stakeholders and, of course, the city. So we'll see where that goes. But that's just an example of what is possible.
Wow. Well, friends, thank you. I really appreciate your story. I appreciate your passion and commitment. And what would you say in closing to other Christ-centered individuals in terms of civic projects, why they matter, and what they should think about as it pertains to their discipleship?
Interesting question.
Mm-hmm. I've gotten back involved with Kids Across America, and we took 29 kids to camp this summer. And I think you just need to ask the Lord each and every day what you're supposed to do and what He's calling you to do. And these were 3 separate groups. They came together, they took one bus to Missouri, and 29 lives were saved. So,
and for the leaders on that trip, when Eugenia calls, they answer. And that is so important, to touch lives, human lives, with salvation, with love, with those children that have often never gotten out into wild spaces and lakes and trees and such. This Orlando Trust work encourages me because it's equally important to think about the built environment, to think about our service to our community. And the church certainly emphasizes the human touch in our discipleship and evangelism. I would say, and not but we need to be encouraging more our leaders who are out doing this sort of work. So thank you. Thank you so much. Friends, if you want to learn more, you can go to orlandolandtrust.org, orlandolandtrust.org. That brings us to the close of today's conversation. Thank you for choosing to spend your time with us. Now, if this episode resonated with you, best way to spread the word, as I said, is simple. Share it. Help send it to a friend maybe that might need to hear it. Even consider leaving a review wherever you listen to your podcast. So as a token of gratitude, I'd love to send you my 31-day faith and work prompt journal. Just visit wecolabor.com, wecolabor.com to request your free copy, explore our library of content, and connect with us on social media. Also, for your encouragement, check out Nuance Formed for Faithfulness, our weekly 10-minute devotional podcast that's released every Monday to guide the working Christian through the beauty of the liturgical calendar. Grateful for the support, sponsorship of today's program, the Magruder Foundation. I'm Case Thorp, and God's blessings on you.